With Joey Blackwell and Katie Wyndham, I am Mason Smith, and this is Three and Out. Guys, it goes without question that the 2022 Alabama soccer team is having one of the most successful seasons of Bama history. But of course, there were other successful seasons well before then. So, Joey, starting with you, in your opinion, which team had the most successful season in Bama history?
Well, I'll take on football, which I know is a tall task because I know if you ask 10 different Bama fans, you might get 10 different opinions on what the best team of all time was for that team. But for me, I'm going to go a little bit of recency bias. I'm going to go to that 2020 team that won the 2021 national championship game because they have to stagger the years like that. Um, that team, was just loaded with talent from top to bottom. One of the best statistically performing offenses in Alabama history and an incredible defense as well. They played a grueling 10-game SEC schedule, which everybody in that conference did that year, but Bama finished undefeated, obviously. Just all the hurdles that team and the adversity that team had to overcome was just impressive. And not on top of that, you have three Alabama players finished in the top five in Heisman voting. Devontae Smith obviously winning it, Mac Jones being featured in the top four, and then of course Najee Harris at five. So just overall, just an incredibly talented team. Dominated pretty much every opponent they faced. They did struggle against Ole Miss during the regular season, and they struggled against Florida in the SEC championship game, having to hold them off to win. But outside of those two games, just overall dominant performances. Won the Rose Bowl in Dallas, which is something that I think no Alabama fan will ever forget. Then, of course, thumping Ohio State and Miami in the national championship game against a very, very good Justin Fields and the Buckeyes. So just overall, from top to bottom, it was just a very impressive year for that team. And like I said, if you ask 10 Bama fans, they'd probably give you 10 different answers. But for me, that 2020 team will always be something special.
Yeah, when I think about great Alabama teams, there's a lot, obviously, of Bear Bryant coach teams, a lot of Nick Saban coach teams, the 92 national championship team under Gene Stallings. But I kind of took this question on from in my lifetime. So I was born in 97. So just what's happened since then. And yeah, even under Saban, I would have to go with that 2020 national championship team just because they played all 13 games against, Power Five teams or whatever you want to call Notre Dame since they're independent. But and just, having three guys finish in the top five for the Heisman, just the talent on that team was insane. The way that they dominated teams, I don't even know if struggle is a word you can use against Ole Miss and Florida. They were tight games, but they still, I don't think any Alabama fans were worried that Alabama was ultimately going to lose either of those. But you already hit on a lot of those points. Another team I'd like to bring up that was pretty dominant is the 2012 softball national championship winning team. They finished with a 60-8 record, never let a single team beat them more than once that season. Obviously beat Oklahoma in the championship series. They lost that first game, but then, like I said, did not let a single team beat them more than once and won the last two. Had the famous rain game in game three, won the SEC tournament that year in Tuscaloosa. We're led by Jackie Traina, Caleb Rowe, led off that lineup. And it was just top to bottom a really good team that brought that national championship to the Alabama softball fan base that they had been waiting for. Last year they celebrated the 10-year anniversary of that. And whenever we would ask Murph about it, he said, not only did it make him feel old, but it just meant it was time to win another one. So, this upcoming year with Alabama softball, Montana Fouts last year with the Crimson Tide, we'll have to see how things go. But that 2012 Alabama softball national championship team, I know, holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts and was pretty dominant from start to finish that year.
You know what, Katie? I almost stepped into your room and picked a softball team that finished 52-9 a couple years ago, but I decided to go back with the beat that I've been covering recently and go with the 2022 Alabama soccer team. Again, they've shattered almost every record that they had that stood. They went undefeated in SEC regular season play, which has only been done a handful of times. They almost swept the individual awards of the SEC and then nearly won the SEC tournament. And the good thing about their story compared to the other options is that their story is still being written. They have their second round game coming up, and they have a legitimate chance to make it to the College Cup and potentially win a national championship. But the talent on that roster with all the senior players, Riley Parker, Felicia Knox, McKinley Crone, that's a team that was being constructed literally. You could almost say 8 years in the making since West Hart got to Alabama, but it's really been impressive to see how they've performed. But no wrong answers here. All teams are successful. We're glad to hear those answers. And again, with Joey Blackwell, Katie Wyndham, I am Mason Smith. Thank you so much for watching.